Well, hello, everybody. Peter Greenberg here on this Thursday, May 20th, 2021. Coming to you from the balcony of the St. James Hotel, the legendary hotel, historic, iconic hotel in Selma, Alabama. And if you look behind me, speaking of iconic and historic, that's the famous Edmund Pettus Bridge, noted, of course, for Bloody Sunday back in 1965 and the Selma to Montgomery March. We all know what happened then, and that history is remembered here, and it is talked about here. The conversations continue here, and it lives on. There is so much history in this town, not to mention Montgomery. I'm here actually shooting one of my television shows for PBS, and of course, joining you for our Facebook Live Global Travel Update. If you've got questions, you send them in. You know how to do that. If you missed me today, that's okay. You can always email me to peter@petergreenberg.com, and we'll answer that either online or on our radio show, which airs this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That's Ion Travel. And if you can't find it in your local market, not a problem. It's on CBS. But if you can't find it there, go right to our website, petergreenberg.com, hit the radio icon, and we'll stream it live. That starts at about 5 minutes after the hour on Saturday. Of course, we're giving stations locally to do their news and traffic, and then we start about 5 minutes after the hour. So much to talk about this week. It's getting mad out there. I mean, really mad, as in mask madness. The CDC guidance lends itself to tremendous confusion, misinterpretation, and let's take it to its logical extension, bar fights. That's right. I'm just convinced it's going to be happening more and more because no one can prove whether or not anybody's been vaccinated, at least on the street. No one's going to prove it in a bar. No one's going to prove it in a restaurant. No one's going to prove it at a dry cleaner. The good news is for travelers, though, this is also the week that the EU officially said what we talked to you about a couple of weeks ago. They're opening up. Those walls are coming down. Fully vaccinated Americans can go to any one of 27 European Union countries. Already it's opened, of course. Last Saturday, Greece opened, then Italy. This week it was Germany. Tomorrow or Saturday it could be Spain. And of course, everybody's waiting on the UK. The UK is going to happen. It's all about reciprocity. Remember, the U.S. State Department did that real blanket level 4 do not travel advisory, and they put the UK on the list. The UK was not happy with that, so they reciprocated in kind that when they issued their red, yellow, green light system that would allow vaccinated passengers to come to the UK, the U.S. was not on that list. My guess is, at the end of the day, those walls come down too before June 15th. Probably it'll be effective July 1st. So watch this space. But and the U.S. will have to reciprocate, letting vaccinated UK citizens coming to the U.S. So get ready. It's all going to be happening very soon in every walk of the travel industry life, meaning hotels, airlines, cruise ships, you name it, it's happening. Now, of course, there's a way it's going to happen and how it's going to happen that's going to make the difference in your life and how much it's going to cost when it happens. Prices are going up. Bookings are still 12% above where they were, not last year, where they were in 2019. So that should give you an example of the pent-up demand being exercised by travelers globally. And then, of course, there's the issue of once you get to one of those European Union countries, can you travel between them? That's going to be resolved very soon as well. Chances are the answer is going to be yes. Now, we have 20 countries right now already that have lifted the restrictions, and there'll be another 20 more probably by next week. That's how fast this is going. We've morphed from a public health issue into an economic one, and no country wants to be left alone without a summer of revenue. Now, what does this mean for the cruise industry? That's another interesting story. Bill has been passed in Congress. It's got to get marked up a little bit, but it's been passed, and it should be on its way to the president's desk relatively soon to do a waiver on the old Passenger Vessel Act dating back to 1886, which said that no vessel not registered in the U.S. could sail between two U.S. ports without stopping in a foreign port first. If they do the waiver on that, which is what that act does, then you could have a modified, shortened Alaska summer cruise season this year. The way you look at it, even if that was signed by the president today, it would still take 90 days for them to get the cruise ships ready because they've got to vaccinate their crew. They got to bring them in and vaccinate them. So they're already starting to do that in anticipation of this, but you will now see that happening. Other ports, Mobile, Alabama, New Orleans, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Newark, Bayonne, New York and Brooklyn, of course on the West Coast, San Francisco, Seattle, LA, and San Diego getting ready as cruise ships may be able to be sailing from there by around July 15th. But the very first cruise ship to be sailing with U.S. passengers close to U.S. waters is going to happen on June 5th. I'll be on it. It's the Celebrity Millennium. It'll be sailing from St. Martin on a circular tour that'll end up back in St. Martin, so it's home ported there. They're not going to be at full capacity. That's intentional. They'll sail at about half full, but essentially they've sold out every cabin they wanted to sell, and that'll be an interesting test cruise to see what's going on. They've already implemented those rules about vaccination, so every officer on that ship is vaccinated, every crew member on that ship is vaccinated, and of course you cannot be a passenger on that ship unless you've been vaccinated. Now, there's a Florida suit. You may know about it. The governor of Florida is saying that nobody can institute mandatory vaccination requirements, which is what the cruise industry is essentially doing, and they've already done it. So that the cruise industry actually ended up suing the governor of Florida. That's heading to mediation. My guess is it's going to go nowhere. The cruise lines are going to win because economics are going to take precedence here, especially if everybody's vaccinated. There is no issue anymore. Where there is an issue is in every other aspect of travel and your experience in life when it comes to not just vaccinations, but masks. Now, the St. James is now part of the Hilton operation. Hilton still rules that you have to wear masks in the hotel. Marriott is now ruling you don't. Everybody's operating on a different set of guidelines now based on the CDC guidelines. There's a Walmart here. Don't have to wear masks. What about Target? What about Costco? What about your dry cleaner? What about your favorite grocery store? The private sector, forgetting vaccine passports, which may or may not ever happen, the private sector is going to lead the way with making rules that are particular to that particular entity. Remember, no shoes, no shirt, no service. There may actually have to still be no mask or no vaccine, no service. And each individual retail operation is going to have to come to grips economically with what the financial impact is going to be based on the decision they make. But right now, it's the wild, wild west with mask madness and mask confusion. So right now, I just say BYOM. I carry mine with me. And if somebody asks me to put it on, even though I'm vaccinated, I will. And speaking of that, even with the EU countries opening, that is not going to alleviate you of the need and the requirement in many of these countries to get tested multiple times. What it gets you off the hook from doing is quarantining. So you're not going to have to do that in those countries. And you also have to remember there's still a U.S. rule that in order to return to this country, you've got to get a negative COVID-19 test within 72 hours of your return. Now, on the ship that I'm going to be on, I'm only going to be on the ship for a couple of days to do my reporting. I'm not on for the full cruise. I'm working. In order for me to get off the ship, of course, I have to be tested as well in order to satisfy not only the local island requirements in the country I'm getting off in, but the U.S. requirements as well. Every one of those cruise ships now has testing facilities on board with rapid responses. So the industry is pivoting, and welcome to our new way of life. Also, the TSA needs another 6,000 agents because they're looking at their numbers. We're coming up on Memorial Day weekend. 35 million Americans are going to travel, 2.7 million of them by air. That'll be the largest number of passengers screened this year. In fact, over the last 15 months when you think about it. So get ready for longer lines. I can tell you for a fact, the planes are full already. The airlines are putting every plane they've had parked in the air. I took 3 planes to get here because you land in Montgomery, Alabama, then you drive to Selma. Every one of my planes was completely full. They will be completely full going home. And that's just not in the Alabama market. That's in the U.S. domestic market. It's happening. Now, where are there bargains? Well, not necessarily on domestic airfares. They're getting higher and higher as we speak. But the bargains are still international, on long haul, and not to me just on fares in terms of cash, but in terms of mileage. So I said it last week. I'll repeat it now. Plan ahead, be strategic, and do that now. Speaking of cruises leaving from foreign ports, some cruise lines are saying, you know what? We think we're going to have so much demand from the American market, we're going to charter our own planes. So Viking Cruises got ships going out of Malta this summer. They just got a deal with Lufthansa. They're going to fly all their passengers on charter flights from Newark to Malta. Good idea. Do you remember the days of charter flights? Most of you aren't old enough to remember them, but apparently they're going to be coming back to meet that cruise ship need, since there may not be either the service or the environment to do it. For example, Italy opened up last week, and both United and Delta, I believe, I think American's in on this too, offering all vaccination flights. So if you're on that flight and you've already shown proof of vaccination, you enter Italy without quarantine, no questions asked. So all that stuff is good and going to be changing for the better as we continue our stuff. Let's go to some of your questions now. I'm going to scroll up here and try to get it the right way. Katrina says, welcome to beautiful Alabama. It is Sweet Home Alabama. Oh, by the way, the Alabama River is also behind me. And it's Alabama doesn't get enough praise. They call it the Redneck Riviera. Believe me, it's beautiful. All right. Lorraine says, good morning from the City of the Angels. Jamie says, is it possible to use a CPAP machine on flights given the COVID mask requirement? There is no one answer to that, James. We will check into that for you and get you an airline by airline rule. My research team will get on that because I don't know the answer to that. Just saw the Royal Caribbean canceled more cruises. What are your thoughts on Alaska this summer? Well, Royal Caribbean did cancel one cruise. They were the first ones in to announce scheduled service on their big ship, the Odyssey, out of Haifa in Israel. But because of the evolving situation there and the safety concerns that the cruise line has, they've pulled out. That ship has already been repositioned out and will not be back this year. Any of the other cruises that they canceled were probably from U.S. ports that haven't been ramped up yet, but they will be sailing their ships. You mentioned Royal Caribbean. Celebrity is part of Royal Caribbean. That's the ship I'm going to be on. They're sailing June 5th out of St. Martin. Patrick says, aloha from Honolulu. All right. Greetings from the California Historic Route 66 Association. That's right. 35 million Americans out there in their car over Memorial Day weekend, a lot of them reintroducing themselves to Route 66. Ann says, good morning from New Jersey. Leslie says, hello from Delray Beach. Last time I was in Delray Beach was after 9/11, and you know why. And for those of you who don't, some of the hijackers had apartments there. Do you have a suggestion on how to get in touch with Delta aside from holding on for hours? Yeah, this is a problem I've been having with Delta now for the last 3 weeks. It's ridiculous. We've seen some folks on hold, and they tested it. Gary Leff, who does a column called viewfromthewing.com, he was on hold for 41 hours. Nobody came on the line. He decided to test it. This is absurd. This is absurd. And the best part, sorry, Delta, I gotta call you out on this one. At the beginning of the call, they say, at the end of your call, please stay online for a 2-minute survey on our service. We don't need a 2-minute survey on your service. We just did a 41-hour survey on your service. Guys, answer the phone. The answer to you on Delta is, call at 3 a.m. Wake them up. Seriously, don't call between 5 and 9 in the morning or between 5 and 9 in the evening, because everybody else is. Do it at 3 a.m. Will Hawaii ever follow current CDC guidelines? Looks like no changes and problems with inter-island travel testing. Actually, they're getting their act together. I will be going over there early next month to Kauai to do one of my television shows there, and I'm given reasonable assurance that inter-island travel is going to be allowed with minimal amounts of testing. So stay tuned. We'll have more reports on that. Ann says, I am booked on an NCL cruise in December, and my doctor has sent me a note that I'm not able to be vaccinated due to health conditions. Do you think they will let me cruise with a doctor's note, or how do I handle it without canceling before final payment? The answer, Ann, is under the new CDC guidelines for lifting the conditional sail order for cruises, 98% of the crew is required to be vaccinated and 95% of the passengers. Why was that extra 5% left open? Not for you necessarily, but for kids who couldn't get vaccinated. So we will check with NCL, and next week we'll give you an answer, all right? Because I don't think they have one yet, but we're going to find out. Here's another one. Is there any rumor that airlines may be raising points miles needed for a seat? That's not a rumor. That's happening. I told you guys a month ago, book your mileage now. They had never been lower. It's going up. I saw it happen last night. A 35,000 mile redemption went to 42.5 overnight, right? That's 20%. So guys, do your homework. Listen to what I told you. Look 330 days out. Redeem your miles now. They will never increase in value. That's right. That's the N word. Never. They're only going to get devalued. Do it now. Brian Kane says United had a $225 round trip to Tokyo for a few hours from many cities a couple of weeks ago. The deal sites alerted people on it. I got DFW through Chicago in November. Do you think that was an actual price mistake? Believe it or not, the airlines may not admit that was a mistake, and maybe it wasn't, because on those flights, they're almost all cargo flights these days. So they're just throwing darts against the wall. They're just trying to fill seats they can't fill. Either way, you know it was only on the site for a few hours. There you go. My good pal Seco says, great to hear, sir, cruising into 2022. It's going to happen, Seco. I've been writing you these emails, and you have to believe me, the doors are going to start to open. We've been, sitting around for 14 months, and before we take any more hostages, the world is about to open. But I have to give you the caution, if we act responsibly. Remember, it's not a matter anymore whether or not we've been vaccinated, because we're getting vaccinated. Our numbers are going up, and we're feeling more confident about that. It's a matter of the vaccination levels in the destinations where we're going and the behavior of the people who live there. You know what the vaccination levels as a percentage of population are in Africa right now? It's dismal, less than 3%. That's unacceptable. And they're not moving fast. Now, would I go to Africa tomorrow? Yes, because I've been vaccinated, and I'm also going to bring my mask. I'm going to do it. I'm going to respect their situation because it needs it. But again, every situation has a different situation you have to respond to, and in fact, anticipate. So yes, we're getting into 2022, Seco. That doesn't necessarily mean we're cruising into it. Sharon says, greetings from Florence, Arizona. Looking forward to travel to Italy and Europe. Thanks for all of your great information. Well, thank you again, Sharon, and you're going to go. You are going to go. Thank you for the anonymous message about no shoes, no shirt, no service. Thank you. Tim, in terms of reciprocity, the 80% of the world that is on the U.S. Department Do Not Travel list should come out with their own travel warning for travel to the U.S. Well, many of them have. A couple of years ago, the Bahamas and Germany issued their own versions of State Department warnings to their own people saying, don't go to Florida. Don't go to New York. The crime rate's too high. They were giving us a taste of our own medicine. Now, did that stop their people from coming? Not really, because they're smarter travelers than we are. They know if there's a riot in Cincinnati, it doesn't mean you can't go to Cleveland. In many cases, it doesn't mean you can't go to Cincinnati. But people get scared too easily, including our own State Department. Victoria Falls, 77% of the population has been vaccinated. They started with all members of the tourism industry. Smart move up there. Now, you mentioned Victoria Falls, Tim. Are you talking about Zambia? Or are you talking about the other side? Tell me more. Tanya is saying, do I recommend paying the Cancun tourist tax online or at the airport? Also, with rising COVID levels in Cancun, do you foresee new travel restrictions? Believe it or not, the governor of Quintana Roo right now is wrestling with the idea of a lockdown. They've had a huge spike in cases there, not among the visitors who've been vaccinated, obviously, but among the locals. As far as the tax is concerned, Tanya, here's the deal. As long as you can get it done online, that's one less line you have to stand in when you leave. The question is, are the Mexicans allowing that to happen, or are they making you stand in line to get that cash directly? I do not know that answer, but they timed this tax at the worst possible time. Okay, Tommy says, do I speculate testing requirements of travel to Italy will go away for fully vaccinated folks by September? I do not. Until their vaccination levels get higher, you're going to have to get tested. Again, the good news is you're not going to be quarantined. Tim says Zimbabwe, okay, but not Zambia. All right, well then that's half the battle. Jim Holden says, thank you for the shout out. You got it, Jim. Okay to travel to Africa with good advice to wear a mask. Yes, you got to do that. Zimbabwe, Florine just chimed in. Just got my visa for Tanzania, vaccinated, and And you have a mask. Okay, congratulations, bon voyage. Victoria Falls, Zimbabwe is the first city in Africa to achieve herd immunity. Wow, they are definitely in the minority, but congratulations to them. One note about Victoria Falls and Zimbabwe, you might want to think twice before doing the bungee jump there. I've seen the rope. I'm not confident. So there. Okay, Jane Rubel. Hey, Jane, I haven't talked to you in a while. Recently went to the Turks and Caicos, couldn't get on the flight without negative COVID test both ways. Still true? Yep. And one more thing about the Turks and Caicos, you got to show proof of insurance. All right? So there you go. Leslie wants an update on Canada. Well, isn't that interesting? Today is May 20th, and they told us they'd give us an announcement about whether they're going to reopen the borders on May 21st. Well, they haven't. So guess what? They're still closed. Interestingly enough, though, mark my words, once the UK opens up, and they will open up to vaccinated Americans, Canada, those walls will come down and those borders will open if you meet the requirements. Here's one from D. Decker who says, we are going on a cruise in August and doing a pre-cruise in Lucerne and a post in Amsterdam. Do you think they will be open? Well, yeah, they're going to be open next week. The EU has already ruled it. Now, Switzerland is an interesting case. You know what? I know they're a neutral country, but they can't be neutral now. They're going to open. This is a situation where they cannot ignore the obvious numbers as long as you play by the rules. Now, they still have to get most of their people vaccinated. Those numbers still have to go up. But look, I have no issue right now traveling as long as you play by the rules. Let's go to some of your questions that you sent in. Also, let me announce our winner of the photo of the week. It's Ed Danielczyk. I hope I pronounced that right, Ed. He sent his photo from Sedona, Arizona. Talk about a beautiful time of the year. Look at the colors in that photo. It's amazing. And of course, many hiking trails in the neighborhood. Look at that. I love it. Has anybody ever flown into the Sedona airport? You know what the waiting room is? It's one Barcalounger, but it's cute. It's like landing on the top of a of a toaster. Anyway, thank you, Ed, for that. And if you've got a photo you want to send in and talk about how you got it, you know how to do that. Peter@petergreenberg.com, and we will get it out on the air for you and acknowledge you properly for it. And again, thank you for sending that in. Patty Ford says karma in Sedona. You're right. Gary says, okay, I'm vaccinated and want to get away outside of the U.S. What is your best recommendation that will not get canceled, least hassle, and a worthwhile destination? Well, remember, we've got 20 countries that are already doing it. My guess is once they open the door to vaccinated Americans, they're not going to close it to vaccinated Americans. However, they may close it to their own citizens. For example, Greece last week opened on May 15th. Greece is still in lockdown. There's still a curfew every night from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. For a long period of time, Turkey was in a lockdown. I was there, I know. But that didn't stop me from going. It didn't stop me from enjoying Turkey. It just stopped me from going out to dinner late at night. So there are ways around this. So the word cancel has to be taken, qualitatively. Okay, here's one from David Alpern. I remember you. Is it accepted to have a picture of your vaccination card as opposed to carrying the physical card itself? If you've been vaccinated and have the documentation, does one still need to submit a negative COVID test? Well, the answer to your first question is technically yes, David. But you know what? I'm dealing with a lot of people at ticket counters and at border crossings who haven't been properly trained. I really believe in carrying the real deal. Photocopy it. I've said this before. Make 3 copies. One that you keep separately from your passport or your wallet. One that you give to your significant other or your traveling companion, and one that you keep at home. So if you want to just do the photo and show it to them on the phone, they want to accept that, I'm all for it. I just don't know that everybody's going to do that. Now, as your other question is pertaining about does one still need to submit a negative COVID test? Yes, you do. When you get back to the United States, or if you're coming back from overseas, the rules are you still have to do it within 72 hours of your departing flight. And there you have it. Now, many hotels and resorts and cruise lines are pivoting to a deal with that, and they're offering free testing, and they'll do it rapidly. And it's a far cry from the so-called concierge days in New York just a couple of weeks ago when they wanted to charge you $430 and make you wait 4 days for the PCR test. Those days are thankfully over. The public has spoken with their wallets and their intelligence. So it's getting easier and easier. Here's one from Sandy Collins. Cape Town and Botswana vaccinated and wearing a mask. Okay. Yeah. Look, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on Facebook either. But you know what? Okay. And keep that mask on. Here's one from Terry. How will travel industry deal with counterfeit fake vax cards? I've seen stories that they're becoming an issue. They're not becoming an issue. They are an issue. I saw some sold on the internet for $80 for a packet of 4. Talk about a package deal. Look, here's the problem we've had since day one. There's no centralized set of standards for verifying, for reading, for updating, and for making them not forgeable, and for making sure that the information isn't shared or sold. Right now, we're in the year 2021, and we're dealing with pieces of cardboard. Help me. So the answer to your question, Terry, is it's an issue. All right, we got one from Jim. What about warnings coming from the WHO about the new India strain spreading around the world with imbalance in world vaccination? I'm aware of that, Jim. What I do know is that the latest I've seen is that the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines have done very well in efficacy with those strains. But again, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one. Check with your own physician to make sure that he or she thinks it's a good idea. Ellie wants to know, how do I get to Dubrovnik in November? We are cruising with semester at sea, partial voyage, hoping to get to Haifa. Okay, well, lots of ways to get to Dubrovnik in November. What you haven't told me is what are your ports leading up to it if you want to hop off the ship and go that way. But there's daily flights from Zagreb, of course. There are some flights that'll connect into Istanbul and into other cities. But Dubrovnik is getting more air service because, and it's not just because of Game of Thrones, but because the airlines have run the numbers. So July 1, United Airlines starts brand new nonstop service from Newark to Dubrovnik. Delta's doing the same, I think, out of JFK, and other airlines may follow suit. It's going to be a very big summer for Dubrovnik in terms of air service. They deserve it. Last year, American announced service, didn't do it. The year before, American did service and pulled out. And American did not come back. So United and Delta are filling that void. Pamela Williams wants to know, which cruise lines are requiring their passengers to be vaccinated? If it's a U.S.-based company, the answer is every one of them. Now, there are European cruises that are not doing that. They're not making it a requirement. There are other stricter protocols on board in terms of testing and where you can and can't go on the ship. But on the U.S., if you're booking with Royal Caribbean or Carnival or NCL, you're going to have to get vaccinated. Paul wants to know, is India in November realistic? I can't answer that. I don't know. The numbers there are still staggering. Look, would I go to India tomorrow? I would, only because I've been vaccinated and I'm going to play by the rules. But it's a sad situation there. They need as much help and as many vaccines as they can get, and the people to administer them. That's where we should be concentrating on right now. Now, there's always the argument that tourism dollars basically is a lot better than no tourism dollars in terms of helping an economy and putting food on the table. I agree to that, and I agree with that. But at the same time, right now, medicine and the medical situation right there is numero uno. Now, let's go back to some of the questions you sent in. Okay, Martha says, I saw your piece on CBS. I was on earlier this week on CBS This Morning. Do you think the price of car rentals will go down? We booked for November. Should I keep checking back? In most cases, the answer is no, because they just don't have the fleet and they're not going to get deliveries of new cars until maybe the end of the year. It's as simple as that. My rule of thumb, and I said this on the air earlier this week on CBS This Morning, it's if your trip is under 500 miles, it's BYOC. Bring your own car. I'm serious. And I checked on Monday, right before we did the show. The average rental for a car in Florida for a one-day rental is $441.20. That's it. Don't forget the 20 cents. And that did not include the daily mileage charges above a certain amount. It didn't include any drop-off charges. It didn't include insurance, and it didn't include the big bad one that they've always pulled on you, the refueling charge, which in some cases can be as much as $11 a gallon. Whether it's pre-pandemic or now or post-pandemic, you never return the car unless you fill up the gas right before you get to the airport. Account for that time, because most of us are usually late to flight. We just race back to the airport, throw the keys and run, and then we see what they charge us for $10 of gas, or 10 gallons of gas was over $100. Not a good idea, all right? All right, Tim says, let me scroll back up here a second. Gary wants to know what happens if you get stuck in a country and run out of money to stay at hotels. You go to a hotel that has a program built in, and many of them do, saying we're going to give you free tests, and should you test positive, we'll put you up here for the required 14 days of quarantine at our expense. That answers the question. It also deals with what a lot of people are thinking about, which is what Gary just verbalized online. I don't want to go somewhere and get stuck and not be able to get home. So it all gets into what you negotiate before you ever get on the plane in the first place. Tim Farrell says PCR tests and rapid antigen tests have become a money-making racket. I agree, and especially the ones they're doing at the airport. Anybody who's getting tested at an airport, I'm sorry, that means you haven't planned well. There's a translation for that. Idiot. You know how I get tested? When I'm in New York, I go to the New York City Department of Public Health. I make an appointment. I go in. They're great. They test me within 10 minutes. I go home, and 4 hours later, they send me an email with my results. It's free. Nobody should be charging for this. All right, here we go. Christopher says, my wife and I would like to visit Hawaii, but I found out if I wanted to island hop, each island has their own COVID-19 policies. You're right, Christopher, but that's about to change. It will change maybe as early as the 15th of June. Sandra says, we were booked on Celestial Cruise in September. I'm not finding any info on tours in a bubble or staff has had the vaccine. What are you looking for info on? On shore excursions? The shore excursions on every cruise ship will be heavily chaperoned. You'll be in a bubble. You won't be able to explore any port on your own. Those days are over for the moment, but they will be having shore excursions, I guarantee you. Leslie says, Auto Europe has decent car rates. Yeah. In the U.S.? Tell me more. All right, let's keep going here. If I'm already vaccinated, can I go to Jordan at the end of this year? Right now, they would probably tell you no. We're 4 or 5 months away, so I will tell you yes. All right, nice. Thank you, Gary, for that line. Hey, John Goldhammer, haven't seen you in a long time. You're looking good, too. Jim Holden, any advice on how to handle a gate agent who is misinterpreting the COVID protocols for a particular destination when boarding a plane? Jim, can you give me more details, and I'll give you my answer. All right, let's go back to some of your other questions. Any word on safety and COVID of Costa Rica? I'm heading there for a photo trip on July 3rd. Again, Costa Rica makes you purchase insurance before you come in. They do testing, but keep in mind they do charge for it. So find a hotel or resort that's not. Okay. Don says, here's one. I'm sorry. Here's one from Lynn. When will Air New Zealand begin LAX to Auckland again? Listen, I'm waiting for New Zealand to begin anywhere again. They're just flying within a bubble now between New Zealand and Australia. And both countries have been less than subtle in their remarks about when they're going to reopen. And for all intents and purposes, we're talking maybe January. Now, that's going to be their high season. And there's a reason why they want January. It's like, why is the European Union opening now? They don't want to be out without a summer of revenue. So aim for January. Okay, let's go to Gail. On the rental car return with gas, also make sure the company verifies that it has a full tank. We got burned by Thrifty when the clerk would not come out and check the gas level. Oh, I got a story about that. It happened to me in Hawaii a couple of years ago with Dollar Rental Car. It's one of the great stories. I check in to get my rental car, and they said, and I was silly. I wanted a Jeep. I wanted to think I was going to go off-roading. Guys, there is no off-roading allowed in Hawaii. But, I was in the image. I wanted to do it. I get the Jeep. What do I get? I think it was called the Sidekick. It was a Subaru. It was a Jeep the size of a toaster. And when I got the Jeep, they said, you have to sign this form. And the form said that I hereby agree to return the Jeep with the top fully up, not down. And okay. So now I go to a hotel, and every day they're saying, is there anything they can do for me? And I go, no, I'm fine. The last day of my rental and my last day of my stay it was in the Big Island. I go to put the top up. I can't figure out how to do it. It's impossible. I take out the owner's manual. Impossible. So the bellman goes, is there anything I can do for you? I say, yeah, would you please put the top up? I look out my window about a half an hour later. There are 5 guys working on this, trying to put the top up of this stupid car. They get it up. I tip them appropriately. And I'm so proud of myself that I figured out what a scam this was. I'm going to return this car with the top up, and I'm not going to have to pay this $100 or $150 damage waiver to the dollar rental car people. So I did. And now they also said, you didn't return the car full, so we're charging you for a full tank of gas. Now, in those days, I think it was like $5 a gallon. So they charged me something like $80. Now, I didn't see that till I came home, right? I was the first person to make that mistake in my household. Now I'm sharing it with you. But I didn't stop there. I went back and I said, $80 at $5 a gallon, that's $16. That's 16 gallons. Wait a second. So I go back and find out that this car only holds 8 gallons of gas. So they killed me on this. Well, by the time I was finished and the Attorney General of Hawaii was finished, that practice ended. But you're absolutely right on that. Your advice about the full tank of gas, Gail. Do your homework. I'm not telling you to bring a dipstick, but do your homework. How to test in Paris upon return to the U.S. United offers Abbott. Yes, I know that. A lot of the hotels in Paris are offering those tests now. Check with your hotel before you go. And by the way, like with any other reservation you're doing at the hotel, it's not just the rate, it's the value. You have to ask before don't assume, ask, and you'd be surprised. Okay, Jim Holden says, friends are headed to Switzerland, denied boarding at LAX in spite of a letter from the Swiss consul and extensive research. They had fulfilled all the protocols. Consul shrugged his shoulders and said, it's a mess. Well, he's right. It's a mess. I don't understand. Was it a letter or was it the vaccine? If they fulfilled all the protocols and they needed a vaccine, the letter was not the vaccination card. You're dealing with, look, counter agents have not been properly trained. I said this about 15 minutes ago, and that proves the point. Okay, more for your questions here. Here's from Diane. If I go on my cruise around New Zealand in March next year, will I be wearing a mask? The question you should be asking is, are you going to go on a cruise around New Zealand next year? And you know what? You are. A lot of cruise lines that are based in Australia are already doing cruises to nowhere. They're in a bubble. They're testing everything now, and they'll be ready. As for the mask, it all depends on the rules of that country. Again, bring your mask. We'll see. Okay, Patricia says, I work in the group and incentive hotel business. When do I think the corporate world will start travel again? It already has. They just don't want to admit it because they're still dealing with lawyers and corporate liability. Look, corporate travel and big meetings and groups. I was just at one. We did it from Mexico. You may remember at the World Travel and Tourism Council Global Summit. That was a hybrid meeting. We had about 1,000 people there and about 20,000 online, but it was a success. And they offered all on-site testing. It worked. We're going to see more and more of that as the vaccination levels rise in this country. But if you're talking about big groups and conventions and meetings, we're still sliding to the middle of next year for the simple reason of the dynamics of the meetings and conventions business. They tend to book 2 to 3 years in advance. So even next March or May or April will be a big improvement since they're only going to start booking now. What are my thoughts on COVID safety in the Caribbean? It's getting better and better because of testing and because of rapid response testing. My wife and I are considering a Viking tour of Croatia. Do we know if they're allowing U.S. visitors? Yeah, they are. Croatia's been allowing U.S. visitors for a long time. We were actually over there in September and October and November last year shooting one of my television shows, also doing our radio show. We'll be going back again, shooting in Zagreb, hopefully later in July. So the answer is yes. And now's the time to go before all the demented Game of Thrones fans show up again. You don't want to do that. Go now. All right. When will Ireland open up for vaccinated Americans? I'm waiting to do that because we have a show to do there for Travel Detective, actually for public television called Hidden Ireland. We're ready to do it. We've done our research. They haven't opened their borders because of their own vaccination issues with their own population. However, remember what I said about the United Kingdom, about they're going to have to open up June 15th to take effect July 1st. I'm betting on that. And once they do that, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland are right behind them. All right. Is it really time to buy holiday travel tickets now? If you're cashing in mileage, yes. If you want to go to big popular destinations like Hawaii, probably, because those fares are going nowhere but up, going nowhere but up. And again, if you're going to use mileage to do it now when the mileage levels are depressed, then if you can't go later on, the airlines will redeposit your miles back to your account for no additional fee. So why wouldn't you do it now? Because I guarantee you, within 3 months, those mileage redemption levels are going to go up, meaning the number of miles that you're going to need to redeem, they're going to go up. So please listen to me. Okay, I read that Japan is, Betsy says, I read that Japan is experiencing a huge surge in COVID. How will they manage the Olympics safely? Well, the Japanese have already announced the Olympics are going to go on despite that, because they're not allowing any foreign spectators. So, and the reason why they're doing that, MONEY, it's called television broadcasting rights. So far, even though 80% of the Japanese population overwhelmingly disapproves of the Olympics in terms of popular opinion polls right now, at least today, they're going forward with them. All right, see if we have any last few messages here. For car rentals, see if you're allowed to use your corporate rate code. And the answer is use it. And the answer is you can. Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to come back here. You asked about Canada already. I told you already about that. All right, wondering about Canada in October with restrictions. Looking at Whistler area, appreciate. Okay, well, Whistler, you're talking about British Columbia, right? In October, they've got to open. It's inevitable. So if you want to make a reservation now, do it. Just make sure you have a mutually agreeable definition of terms so that if you cancel, you're not stuck with a credit voucher that you'll never use. Julie, that's the news on Canada I just shared with you. Okay, Colleen says, if you're fully vaxxed, do we also have to prove we test negative before going to or returning from France? Before returning from France, yes. Don't know the new rules about going to France on that. We'll check that out, and my staff will get that answer to me, and we'll get it to you. Okay. The gate agent just had a different interpretation of the required protocols, no one to moderate, and time ticking away to boarding. Well, there you have it. You buried the lead. You want to get there early enough to talk to a supervisor with enough time to gently explain. And look, you never want to take a no from somebody who's not empowered to give you a yes in the first place. And when the clock is ticking, your options just expired. Here's one from Sandra. We are on a multi-stop tour of Europe. We're booked on VRBOs. Where do I find COVID testing? Very simple. Look, call any local hotel that's an American branded hotel. Believe me, they'll know. All right. Okay. When do I think China will open up for tourism? Well, right now they're not in a rush to do it because they're making so much money from their own internal tourism. More Chinese are traveling now within China. The airplanes are full. 7 of the 10 biggest airports in the world right now are in China, all due to regional traffic. So my guess is October, November, right? They don't want to miss Christmas. Not that it's a big holiday there, but it is usually a heavily trafficked time. All right. Again, I send you greetings from Selma, Alabama, this historic city with the Edmund Pettus Bridge behind me, the Alabama River to my right, your left. We'll be reporting on that for my show, The Travel Detective, so look for that. Of course, I'll see you on the radio this Saturday, Eye on Travel. And in the meantime, check on our website, petergreenberg.com, for all the news updates you need, because as I'm speaking to you right now, there's every reason to believe that 2 more countries just opened and 1 more country just fired their Minister of Tourism. I'm kidding, but at least 2 more countries just opened. So hang in there. You know how to reach me, and we'll see you on the television. We'll see you on the internet. We'll see you on Facebook. Have a great rest of the week, everybody, and I'll see you soon.